The night was quiet in the small rural town. The air smelled of wet earth after a light rain, and the sound of crickets filled the fields. Houses stood far apart, surrounded by dark woods and open farmland. Life here was simple. People slept. Early animals rested in barns, and nothing unusual ever happened. But tonight, the sky held a secret. Tom, a 12-year-old boy, sat by his bedroom window, unable to sleep. His parents thought he was resting, but he stared outside with wide eyes. Far above the fields, strange lights moved in patterns no airplane could make. Red and white circles spun around each other, glowing brighter every second. "Mom!" he whispered loudly, afraid to shout. "Mom, come here!" But his mother was asleep, tired from a long day at the diner. Tom pressed his face against the glass. The lights stopped moving. Then, in an instant, one of them shot down from the sky and vanished into the cornfield behind the Miller farm. Tom's breath caught. His heart pounded. He whispered to himself, "Something just landed." Far away at the Miller farmhouse, old Jack Miller was still awake. He was feeding his dogs when the animals suddenly grew restless. They whined, barked, and pulled at their chains, eyes fixed on the cornfield. Jack frowned. "What's wrong with you boys?" "Ain't no wolves out there," he muttered. Then he heard it, an odd humming sound, like metal buzzing in the air. It came from the fields, low and steady, almost like a machine running without stopping. He dropped the bucket, his face pale. "That ain't normal," he whispered. By midnight, word spread among a few neighbors. People gathered on porches, whispering about the strange lights. "Some laughed it off. Must be one of those weather balloons," said Mrs. Carter, shaking her head. But old Jack wasn't laughing. "Weather balloons don't shake the ground when they land," he snapped. "Something's out there." The crowd grew uneasy. Children were pulled closer to their parents. The woods felt darker, and even the crickets had gone silent. Then came the first scream. It echoed from the Miller cornfield, sharp and human. Everyone froze. Jack grabbed his lantern. "Stay here," he ordered, though his voice trembled. "I'm going to see." Two young men, brothers who worked at the gas station, followed him. They moved through the rows of tall corn, the lantern swinging and throwing weak light. The buzzing sound grew louder, like a swarm of invisible bees. Suddenly the lantern flickered and died. "Jack, what happened?" one of the brothers asked. "Don't know," Jack whispered. His voice was shaking now. "Keep quiet." A shadow passed between the rows. Something tall, thin, and not shaped like any man. The brothers gasped, but Jack held up a hand. They watched as the figure bent low, its skin faintly glowing green under the moonlight. It carried something that sparked with blue. Light, like lightning trapped in a stick. The figure turned its head. Two glowing eyes looked straight at them. "Run!" Jack shouted. The three men tore through the corn, tripping and stumbling. Behind them came a hiss, sharp and alien, followed by a flash of blue that lit up the field. The air crackled as if struck by lightning. They burst out of the cornfield, panting and pale. The neighbors rushed toward them, shouting questions. "What did you see? What was it?" Jack's voice shook. "Not human, not from this earth. They're here." Fear spread through the small crowd. Some wanted to call the police, but the phone lines were already dead. Radios carried only static. Someone tried their truck, but the engine refused to start. "It's them," Jack said grimly. "They're cutting us off." Children began to cry. Parents clutched them tightly. People argued in frightened voices. "Maybe it's the government." "No, it's a prank. I saw its eyes. It ain't no prank." As the shouting grew louder, Tom stepped forward, his small voice shaking. "I saw it first. It came from the sky. There were more lights, moving together." Jack looked down at him. "More?" Tom nodded. "Yes, and I think more of them are coming." At that moment, the sound of metal echoed across the hills. A low hum rolled through the night, followed by a thudding vibration. Everyone turned. Toward the horizon. Beyond the trees, faint red lights flickered. One, then two, then three. They were moving. Jack's face went pale. They ain't just here to scare us, they're hunting." The neighbors backed away, fear in their eyes. The dogs barked wildly, chains rattling. A barn door slammed in the wind, making people jump. Then, without warning, the power in the entire town went out. Street lamps blinked into darkness. Every house turned black. The only light came from the strange glow in the fields. In the silence, a voice broke through, a woman's terrified whisper. "What do they want from us?" Nobody answered. From the cornfield came another sound. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, moving closer. The stalks bent and cracked as something large pushed through. The neighbors began to retreat toward their houses. Mothers held their children close. Fathers gripped axes and shotguns, though their hands shook. Jack stayed where he was, staring into the dark rows of corn. His voice was low but steady. "They came to the wrong town." At that moment, a tall figure stepped out of the corn. The glow from its weapon lit up its strange, armored body. Its eyes shone bright white, scanning the humans with cold precision. Behind it, more shadows moved, silent and countless. The people of the town stood frozen, hearts racing. The night was no longer quiet. Something had arrived, and it was only the beginning. Morning came, but the town did not feel alive. The sun rose over the fields, painting them gold, yet the people carried fear in their eyes. No one had slept much. Windows were locked, doors were bolted, and every strange sound in the night had kept hearts racing. Jack Miller, with his weathered face and tired eyes, sat on his porch cleaning his shotgun. He had not hunted in years, but something told him the weapon would soon be needed. His neighbor, Sarah Carter, came over carrying her baby. "Jack," she whispered, "my phone won't work. The radio too, and the truck won't start." Jack nodded grimly. "It's not just you. They're cutting us off. They don't want us calling for help," Sarah shivered. "But what do they want from us?" Jack looked out at the cornfield, silent under the bright sky. "We're about to find out." By noon, a group of townsfolk gathered at the diner, the only place that still felt normal. The air smelled of coffee and bacon, though no one was hungry. The big windows let in sunlight, but it did little to chase away the shadow of fear. The sheriff, a man with a heavy mustache and steady hands, stood at the counter. "Listen, folks," he said firmly. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet. I'll check the fields myself. Maybe it's military testing, maybe a prank. But until we know, I want everyone calm." A young mechanic named Danny shook his head. "Sheriff, you didn't see them. Jack did. The eyes, the weapon. That wasn't military." The sheriff frowned. "With all due respect, son, I can't go telling people we got aliens walking around. That'll cause a panic." At the corner, Tom, the boy who had seen the lights, whispered, "They're already here. Last night was just the start." The room fell silent. People looked at him, then at one another. Nobody laughed this time. In the afternoon, the sheriff and 2 deputies drove out to the Miller cornfield in their patrol car. The engine worked fine, though every other vehicle in town still refused to start. "Strange, ain't it?" one deputy muttered. "Like they're choosing what to shut down." The sheriff kept his eyes on the road. "Don't talk nonsense." But deep inside he wasn't sure. The car stopped at the edge of the field. The rows of corn stood tall, green and silent, but the ground near the center looked disturbed, as if something heavy had landed there. The sheriff stepped out. "Stay behind me." They pushed into the field. The deeper they went, the quieter it grew. Not a single bird, not even an insect. Then they heard it. The faint buzzing sound, like electricity humming in the air. One deputy whispered, "Sheriff, I don't like this." Before the sheriff could reply, something moved between the stalks. A tall figure, metallic armor gleaming faintly in the light, stepped out. Its eyes glowed white. "Hold it right there!" the sheriff shouted, raising his gun. The alien tilted its head, studying him as if he were nothing more than an insect. Then it raised its weapon. Blue sparks danced at the tip. The sheriff fired. The bullet struck the alien's chest with a metallic clang but did nothing. The alien's weapon flashed, and a beam of blue light shot forward. The deputy beside the sheriff screamed as the beam hit him, throwing him to the ground, his body smoking. "Run!" the sheriff barked. The remaining deputy didn't need to be told twice. They tore through the corn, branches slapping their faces. Behind them, the alien moved with calm, steady steps, as if it knew they couldn't escape. The sheriff burst into the open, panting, dragging his injured deputy. The alien stopped at the edge of the field and raised its weapon again. But then, just as it fired, the sheriff's car engine roared to life on its own. The headlights flared bright, blinding the alien. "Get in!" the sheriff shouted. They dove into the car. The engine screamed as if possessed, and the car shot down the dirt road by itself. In the rearview mirror, the sheriff saw the alien watching them, its glowing eyes unblinking. The injured deputy groaned. What? What was that thing?" The sheriff didn't answer. His hands shook on the wheel. The car finally slowed near the town, the engine dying as suddenly as it had come alive. They rolled to a stop in front of the diner, where the townsfolk had gathered again. The sheriff stepped out, face pale. "What happened?" Sarah cried. The sheriff looked at them all, his voice heavy. "It ain't a prank. It ain't the government. It's real, and it's dangerous." Fear turned into panic. People argued, voices rising. "We have to leave." "The cars don't work, fool." "Maybe we can walk to the highway." "With children? At night we'll never make it." Jack banged his fist on the table. "Enough. We don't run. This is our home. If they want to take it, they'll have to fight us for it." Sarah clutched her baby tightly. "Fight them? With what, Jack?" "They have weapons that burn through men like paper." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Maybe, but we know this land. We've hunted here all our lives. We've set traps for wolves, bears, and worse. They don't know us, and that's our advantage." The sheriff hesitated, then finally nodded. "Jack's right. If they come, we fight. We don't let them think we're weak." The room fell quiet. For the first time, the people weren't just scared. They were angry. As night fell again, the town prepared. Farmers checked their rifles. Mechanics pulled out old tools, gas cans, and dynamite used for clearing stumps. Mothers gathered children into basements. The sky darkened, and once more, strange. Lights flickered above the fields. 3 red orbs moved slowly across the horizon. Tom whispered to his mother, "They're coming back." And this time, the town was waiting. The small town was no longer the same. Fear had spread like wildfire, but beneath that fear grew something else: anger, pride, and the will to survive. People whispered about leaving, but deep down they knew there was no escape. Cars wouldn't start, phones were dead, and the skies above were no longer theirs. Jack Miller sat on his porch sharpening a hunting knife, his shotgun resting by his side. His face was hard, his eyes sharp. He had seen wars before, but this was different. Still, he knew one truth: enemies could bleed, and if they could bleed, they could fall. Sarah Carter stood nearby, her baby wrapped tight in a blanket. She looked exhausted, but her voice was steady. "Jack, people are scared. They don't know what to do." Jack kept sharpening the blade. "Then we show them what to do. We don't wait to be hunted. We prepare." At that moment, the sheriff walked up, his hat pulled low, his jaw tight. "I've been thinking, Jack. Maybe you're right. Maybe running isn't an option. If we stand together, we might stand a chance." Jack finally looked up. "Not might, Sheriff. We will. But we have to act smart." That evening, the townsfolk gathered in the old church. The candles flickered, shadows stretched across the wooden walls, and every face carried the same question: "What now?" The sheriff cleared his throat. "You've all seen it. The lights, the shadows in the fields, the weapons, they are not from here. But we can't just sit and wait. We need to defend ourselves." A young man, Danny, spoke up nervously. "Defend ourselves? With what? We got hunting rifles and bows. They got weapons that burn men alive." Jack stood, his voice strong. "That's true, but we have something they don't. We know this land. Every tree, every cave, every river bend. We've hunted in these woods all our lives. They may have machines, but they don't know how to move through our world." An old veteran, grey-haired Mr. Collins, leaned on his cane. "He's right. Back in the war, we used the land. Guerrilla fighting, we called it. Traps, ambushes, hit and run. Worked against armies bigger than us. It can work again." The room murmured with cautious hope. Sarah asked, "And what about the children? The families?" The sheriff nodded. "We hide them. The basements, the storm shelters, the caves. We protect them first." Jack raised his knife, the blade catching the candlelight. "The rest of us fight." The next day, the town moved with quiet determination. The mechanic's shop was turned into a workshop. Danny and his brother dug out old metal scraps, wires and fuel. They began building makeshift explosives using farming supplies and tools. Farmers set traps in the fields, pits covered with boards and hay, barbed wire hidden in the tall grass, and gasoline spread in ditches ready to ignite. Hunters brought outbows, rifles and crossbows, sharpening arrows until their fingers bled. In the woods, younger men strung ropes between trees, building ambush points. The women prepared food and filled jars with water, placing them in hidden shelters. Even the children were taught to stay silent, to hide at the sound of the humming noise. Tom, the boy who had seen the lights first, followed Jack like a shadow. "Can I help?" he asked eagerly. Jack looked at him. "You're too young," Tom straightened. "But I saw them before anyone else. I can be a lookout. I can climb trees. Please." Jack studied the boy's eyes. They held no fear, only fire. Finally he nodded. "Fine, but you stay hidden. You see something, you whistle. You don't fight unless you have no choice. Understand?" Tom grinned. "I understand." By nightfall, the town looked ordinary on the surface, but beneath the quiet streets, it had become a fortress. The sheriff walked through, watching men dig trenches and set traps. He stopped by Jack. "You think this will work?" Jack loaded his shotgun. "I don't think, Sheriff. I know. They think we're weak. They'll find out we're not." As if on cue, a distant humming filled the night air. Everyone froze. The sound was faint at first, then stronger, vibrating through the ground. Lights appeared over the horizon, red. White and blue orbs moving in formation. "They're coming," Tom whispered from his perch in the church tower. The people of the town took their positions. Men hid behind hay bales, in barns, in tree lines. Women guided children into shelters, whispering prayers. The sheriff stood at the front of Main Street, revolver in hand, his face grim. Jack's voice cut through the silence. "Remember the land. Remember who you are. Don't be afraid. Fear is what they want." The first shadow moved into the edge of town, tall, armored, glowing with strange light. Behind it came more, their weapons sparking blue in the dark. They moved in silence, scanning houses, their eyes glowing like fireflies. One alien stepped into a field. Its foot pressed onto a wooden board. With a snap, the ground collapsed. The creature fell into a pit lined with spikes. It screeched, a sound sharp and inhuman. Another turned quickly, but before it could react, a rope yanked it upward, swinging it into a tree trunk with bone-cracking force. From the barn roof, a hunter fired. The bullet struck one of the aliens in the neck, making it stagger. Sparks flew and it collapsed. The townsfolk held their breath. They had drawn first blood, but the aliens did not retreat. They spread out, moving faster now, weapons raised. Blue light flared across the fields, setting fire to hay bales and wooden fences. Explosions shook the ground. Tom, hiding high in the church tower, saw 3 more ships descending in the distance. His heart froze. He whistled sharply, the sound echoing through the night. Jack heard it and shouted, "More are coming! Hold the line!" The townsfolk tightened their grip on their weapons. Their hearts raced, but their eyes were steady. The first clash had begun, and there was no turning back. The night air shook with fire and smoke. The quiet rural town was no longer silent. Screams, gunfire, and strange buzzing sounds filled the fields. The people had prepared, but nothing could truly prepare them for what was now walking their streets. The first alien fell into a pit, its body pierced by wooden spikes, glowing blood spilling into the dirt. Another swung helplessly from a rope. Trap, its armored chest slamming against a tree until it stopped moving. For the first time, the townsfolk saw something terrifying. They could kill these creatures. Jack Miller reloaded his shotgun, his hands steady despite the chaos. "See that?" he shouted to the men beside him. "They bleed! They fall! Don't you dare stop now!" From behind a hay bale, Danny fired his hunting rifle. The bullet struck another alien in the shoulder, spinning it sideways. It roared, raising its glowing weapon. Blue light exploded across the field, burning a hole through a tractor. Danny ducked. That was close. Jack pulled him down. "Don't wait for them to aim. Hit first." At the edge of town, the sheriff stood in the middle of Main Street, revolver in hand. 3 aliens moved toward him, their steps heavy, their eyes glowing white in the dark. The sheriff's hand shook, but he raised his weapon. "Not my town," he growled. He fired once, twice, 3 times. The bullets sparked off their armor, but slowed them. Then, from a rooftop, an arrow whistled through the air and struck one. Alien in the throat. It collapsed, screeching. "Good shot," the sheriff yelled, as the town's hunters cheered from the rooftops. But the victory was short. The other 2 raised their weapons, blue beams slicing across the street. Wood shattered, glass exploded, and fire spread quickly. "Fall back!" the sheriff shouted, pulling people into cover. Tom, hiding in the church tower, watched everything with wide eyes. His small hands gripped the railing so tightly they hurt. From up high, he could see what others couldn't, more shadows moving through the trees surrounding the town. He whistled, sharp and clear. The sound carried over the smoke. Jack looked up, his face grim. "They're flanking us. Get ready." The defenders shifted quickly. Hunters aimed toward the woods. Farmers lit ditches of gasoline, sending walls of fire roaring across the grass. The aliens stepped back, confused by the sudden flames. "That's right," Jack muttered, raising his gun. "Welcome to our land." In the middle of the field, an alien drone rose into the air. It was small, spinning, glowing red as it scanned the battlefield. The people froze, watching it hover. "What is that thing?" Danny whispered. Before Jack could answer, the drone fired a thin beam of light, striking a barn. The building exploded, flames shooting into the night sky. Horses screamed as they bolted free. "Take it down!" Jack shouted. Hunters fired arrows, bullets, anything. They had. Finally, one arrow struck the drone, piercing its center. It spun wildly, sparks flying, before crashing into the ground. Cheers rose, but only for a moment. From the smoke, 5 more drones appeared, glowing brighter, humming louder. "Get down!" Jack roared. The next minutes were chaos. Blue beams cut through fences, burned through hay bales, and tore apart wooden walls. People ran from one cover to another, firing when they could, hiding when they had to. Sarah clutched her baby inside a storm shelter, whispering prayers. The ground shook with each explosion above. Dust fell from the ceiling, and she closed her eyes tight, holding her child close. Outside, the sheriff ducked behind an overturned wagon. "We can't hold them like this," he shouted. Jack slid. Beside him, shotgun smoking. "We don't need to. We just need to hurt them bad enough that they stop thinking we're easy prey." "And if they don't stop?" the sheriff asked. Jack's eyes narrowed. "Then we keep fighting until the last of us drops, but we make them pay for every step." At the far side of the town, Danny and his brother had set a trap. They had rigged an old gas tank with dynamite and hidden it under hay. Now, as 3 aliens marched across the field, Danny's brother shouted, "Now!" Danny lit the fuse. The explosion shook the ground, fire blasting into the sky. The aliens were thrown like rag dolls, their armor smoking, their bodies broken. The townsfolk cheered, their hope growing, but then the ground itself began to rumble. Tom from the tower gasped, "Something's coming!" The earth split as a massive alien machine rolled into view. It was taller than a house, its legs sharp and metallic, its body glowing with strange lights. It moved like a spider, each step crushing the soil. The sheriff's face went pale. "Lord help us!" The machine opened fire. Blue beams rained down, tearing through buildings, shattering everything in sight. Panic swept the town. People scattered, fire lighting up the night. The defenders fired back, but their bullets bounced harmlessly off the machine's armor. Jack grabbed Tom from the tower as it began to collapse. "Out of here, boy!" he yelled, pulling him to safety. Danny looked at the machine, terror in his eyes. "We can't kill that thing." Jack clenched his jaw. "Maybe not, but we can slow it down, buy time, make them bleed until morning." The sheriff shouted orders, moving people into new positions. The defenders regrouped, still fighting, still refusing to bow. The alien machine marched forward, fire burning all around. The people of the town, though outmatched, did not run. They stood their ground. The night was not over. The first clash had only just begun. Smoke covered the town like a heavy blanket. The alien machine stood in the center, its tall legs crushing fences and houses as if they were nothing. Fire burned on both sides of the street, and the night sky glowed red. The defenders had fought bravely, but the enemy was stronger than they ever imagined. Jack Miller wiped blood from his forehead, gripping his shotgun. His voice was hoarse but firm. "Don't stop! Keep hitting them! Every second we fight, we take back a piece of this town!" Danny crouched behind a broken wagon, his hands shaking as he reloaded his rifle. "Jack, that machine! It's too strong. Bullets don't even scratch it." Jack glared at the machine as it fired another beam, tearing apart a barn. "Every machine has a weakness. We just have to find it." From the shelter beneath the church, Sarah Carter heard the destruction above. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ground shook. She hugged her baby close, whispering, "Please, Lord, protect us." Around her, children cried softly, while mothers tried to quiet them. Outside, the sheriff barked orders, his revolver in one hand, his hat long gone. "Hold your lines! Aim for their drones first! Blind that thing!" Hunters and farmers took aim at the flying machines. Arrows, bullets, and even slingshots filled the air. One drone exploded in a shower of sparks, another crashed into the dirt, but more kept coming, circling like vultures. Tom, crouched on a rooftop with binoculars, suddenly shouted, "Jack, look at its belly! Under the machine it's glowing! Red when it fires!" Jack's eyes narrowed. "That's it! That's the weak spot!" He grabbed Danny by the shoulder. "Get me some dynamite from the workshop. Hurry!" As Danny sprinted through the smoke-filled streets, an alien soldier stepped into his path. Its glowing weapon sparked, ready to fire. Danny froze. Before the alien could strike, a shotgun blast rang out. The creature fell, sparks flying from its armor. The sheriff stepped forward, breathing hard. "Go! Don't stop, boy!" Danny nodded and ran faster, his legs pumping. Meanwhile, Jack gathered the men near the burning field. "Listen up. That thing's got armor too thick for bullets, but Tom spotted a weak point underneath. We hit that with dynamite. Maybe we bring it down." One of the hunters frowned. "How do we get close? It's guarded, and those beams will cut us down." Jack's jaw tightened. "We use the land. The tunnels under Miller's barn still stand. They lead close enough. We sneak in from below." The men exchanged nervous looks, but nodded. At the workshop, Danny and his brother lit dynamite sticks, wrapping them tight with wires. "If this works," Danny muttered, "we're heroes. If not—" His brother smirked weakly. "Then we're dust." They loaded the explosives into a crate and hauled it out, meeting Jack at the edge of the tunnel entrance. The sheriff joined them, revolver ready. Jack looked at the small group of defenders. "This is it. We get under that monster, we blow it to hell, for our town, for our families." The men nodded, determination replacing fear. Inside the tunnels, the air was damp and heavy. The ground shook with every step of the alien machine above. Dust rained down from the wooden beams as they crawled forward, carrying the crate carefully. Danny whispered, "It's right above us." Jack pressed his hand against the dirt ceiling. The hum of the machine vibrated through his palm. Almost. There, they reached the spot. The red glow above them pulsed like a heartbeat. Jack's eyes hardened. "Set it." Danny lit the fuse with trembling hands, placing the dynamite against the dirt wall. "It's ready." "Go!" Jack shouted. They scrambled back through the tunnel. The explosion hit like thunder. The ground heaved, dust choking the air. Above, the alien machine staggered, one leg collapsing, its glowing belly cracked, sparks shooting out like fireflies. Cheers erupted from the defenders. "We hit it! We hit it!" But victory came too. Soon, the machine didn't fall. Instead, it screeched with a sound that pierced the air and fired wildly in every direction. Beams of blue light tore through houses, ripping apart the ground. The town shook with fury. Danny stared, horrified. "It's still alive!" Jack cursed under his breath. "Then we finish it!" At that moment, Sarah climbed out of the shelter, baby still in her arms. She saw the chaos, the burning homes, the collapsing roofs, the machine raging like a demon. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "Jack, they're coming from the woods too!" Everyone turned. From the tree line, dozens more. Alien soldiers marched forward, their weapons glowing, their armor reflecting the flames. The sheriff's face turned pale. "They're sending reinforcements." The defenders tightened their grip on their weapons. Danny whispered, "We can't fight them all." Jack raised his shotgun, fire in his eyes. "We don't need to fight them all. We just need to show. Then we'll never bow." The aliens advanced, their machines humming, their eyes glowing cold. The townsfolk, bloody and tired, stood together in the burning streets. Farmers, hunters, mechanics, mothers, even children. They all had the same look now, not fear, defiance. Tom shouted from the rooftop, his young voice cutting through the smoke. "This is our town. You'll never take it." And as the aliens closed in, the defenders roared back, charging into the fire, ready for the final stand. The small town burned under the red glow of flames. Smoke curled into the night sky, mixing with sparks from collapsing houses. The alien machine still stood, broken but not destroyed, its cracked belly glowing faintly. Around it, the remaining drones buzzed angrily, and more alien soldiers marched from the dark woods. Jack Miller wiped soot from his face, shotgun in hand. His eyes were bloodshot, but his voice was steady. "This is it. No running, no hiding. We hold here." The sheriff stepped beside him, revolver heavy in his grip. "They think they've won already. Let's prove them wrong." Danny, clutching his rifle, glanced at the crowd of townsfolk behind them, farmers, hunters, mothers with kitchen knives, even children carrying stones. His voice trembled. "We can't beat an army." Jack cut him off. "We don't need to beat their army. We just need to break their spirit." The aliens advanced in perfect lines, their glowing weapons raised. Their faces showed no fear, only cold certainty. The defenders tightened their grips, hearts racing. Tom, standing on the rooftop with his slingshot, shouted, "Here they come!" The first volley of alien fire ripped through the air. Blue beams tore up the dirt and shattered fences. A horse bolted from its pen, screaming before collapsing in the road. But the defenders did not scatter. Jack lifted his shotgun and fired. The sheriff's revolver cracked. Hunters released arrows, and farmers fired rifles, even children threw rocks. The first wave of aliens staggered, some falling as bullets and arrows struck their joints. Danny yelled, "They're slowing down!" But more soldiers poured from the woods, stepping over the fallen without pause. The machine roared, firing, beams that blasted holes through houses. The ground shook as its massive legs tried to steady. Then came a cry from the shelter. Sarah ran forward, her baby strapped to her chest. Her face was pale, but her voice was strong. "The tunnels! They still run under the church!" Jack's eyes lit up. "The tunnels!" He looked at the damaged alien machine. We can end this. One last blast. Danny frowned. But we used all the dynamite. The sheriff shook his head. Not all. There's blasting powder in the old mine shed. Jack nodded. We pack the tunnels, set it off beneath that machine and drop it for good. The men hurried. Danny and others sprinted to the shed, gathering barrels of powder and carrying them into the tunnels. Jack turned to the townsfolk. Hold the line. Give us time. The defenders fought like wolves cornered. Every shot, every arrow, every stone kept the enemy just far enough away. The aliens pressed harder, their glowing blades cutting through fences and doors. But the people did not break. Tom shouted from the rooftop, "They're trying to flank us." The sheriff barked, "Hold them back!" Blood stained the dirt. Men screamed, women fought, children cried, but none retreated. The sound of rifles and alien beams mixed with fire and thunder. Below ground, Danny's hands shook as he lit the fuses. Sweat dripped from his face, mixing with the dirt. "It's ready!" he shouted. Jack placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then run!" They scrambled back through the tunnel, hearts pounding as the burning fuses hissed. Above, the machine turned its head, sensing the danger below. It raised one leg to crush the ground. The explosion hit. The earth split open with a roar. Fire blasted upward, swallowing the machine's legs. The alien giant collapsed, its glowing belly bursting into 1,000 sparks. The blast threw soldiers off their feet, their ranks broken. The ground shook as the machine fell onto the burning street with a crash that echoed through the night. For a moment, there was silence. The defenders stared in shock. Then cheers erupted. "We did it!" Danny shouted, tears streaming down his face. But the victory was not complete. From the woods, the alien soldiers regrouped. Their leader, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His armor glowed with strange symbols, and his weapon hummed with power. He raised his arm, pointing at the defenders. The sheriff muttered, "Lord help us." Jack stepped forward, shotgun empty, but his eyes burned with fire. "You want this? Town?" he shouted at the alien leader. "Then come and take it!" The leader aimed his weapon. The defenders braced. But then something unexpected happened. The alien soldiers hesitated. They looked at the fallen machine, then at the humans. Still standing in the firelight, men with bloodied shirts, women clutching knives, children holding stones, but none had bowed. A murmur ran through the alien ranks, a sound like static. Slowly, the soldiers lowered their weapons. Danny whispered, They're leaving." The leader's glowing eyes locked on Jack for a long, silent moment. Then, with a sharp gesture, he turned. The alien soldiers melted back into the dark forest, leaving their broken machine behind. The defenders collapsed where they stood, some laughing, some crying. Sarah knelt, clutching her baby, tears streaming down her face. The sheriff leaned on his revolver, breathing hard. "I don't believe it. We drove them off." Jack looked around at the burning ruins of the town, at the wounded and the dead. His chest ached with grief, but his voice was steady. "We showed them something they didn't expect. Not fear, not surrender." He looked at the survivors, their faces lit by the flames. "We showed them what it means to fight for home." As dawn broke, smoke rose from the ruins, but the people still stood. Farmers, hunters, mothers and children, scarred but unbroken. The alien machine lay silent in the dirt, a monument to the night the invaders learned a simple truth. This small town, forgotten by the world, had taught the galaxy something new. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was dangerous.